Hey guys, welcome back to Just Carve Rob. And we're inside today because it is raining. Yes, it is. All right, so this is where we're at. Okay, we got his mustache in, we got his cheeks in, we got his eye beds carved in. That's where his eyes are going, right there. So we've got the eye beds carved in. And then you can see I've drawn the lines in if I want to put bags under his eyes. I haven't decided about that yet. We're still pretty good on the wood thickness right here. Take your finger calipers. So this is the original thickness of the wood here. Okay. So yeah, we're still pretty good on the thickness of the wood here. So we can still carve those in if we decide to. All right. So yep, that's the hole from the back side. Okay. I've got the other half of this gluing up right now. The half that will go here, come across. Actually, it goes on the inside of here and the outside of there. So it will come out and then over. Just like we did here. It's be an overlap joint. Okay. So that will thicken this side up and this side will stay the same. Now you can go ahead and carve your beard hairs out crazy like that if you want to. I'm going to come in and cut this portion away on both sides. So once I get the other half of this glued on here, which the way I usually do it is I put the glue on it, and then you can either use screws, a couple, 3 screws, to compress the glue, and then when it's all done, you can take the screws out, or you can leave the screws in, countersink them, and plug them. But the way I do it, because I've got a brad nailer. It's kind of like a finish nailer type thing. And I have some aluminum nails for it. Okay. So what I usually do is I glue it, get it in place, and I take my brad nailer and go ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. Put about 4 of those aluminum nails in it. I use the aluminum nails only because if you're carving, let's say you're going to round this over, you want to round this edge over, and you start carving it away and you hit one of those nails, they're aluminum, so they're no worse than a knot in a piece of wood if you hit them. Okay, that's why the aluminum. They're about an inch long, but with the way that thing drives them, it'll shoot them halfway through this board, my air nailer. So I don't worry about hitting them. I usually just round. You'll see. We're just going to come in and round this edge over, soften it once it's all done, and then we're going to make the hat for them. Yeah, we got to make our cowboy hat. So now is the time. If you want to put your cowboy hat back on an angle, okay. Actually, you should have done it before you even glued it together, but you can put your angle line. So and of course you'll have to do it on your back pieces too, so that the cowboy hat's on an angle. I usually like my hat sitting flat, so that's the way it will be with mine. Mine's going to sit flat. Yeah, and we're probably going to give them the cowboy hat where the front flops up like Yosemite Sam. We'll see once we get to that point. We're not near that point yet, so yeah. So we're at the point where we can actually put his eyeballs in. And for that, I think we will use our micro motor. Yep. So we might as well go ahead and get that party started. Get our vacuum cleaner hose up here. So we got some suction going. And yeah, so let's get busy with those eyes, guys. All right, let me get everything set up and we'll be right back. Okay, guys, let the thunder roll. The vacuum's on. Mini carver with a carbide flame burr. 3/32 shafts, guys. Carbide flame burr. Okay. And you can see I've already done one eye. That was my test eye. Make sure I didn't have to do something like put a patch over it. You know, that's something you guys can do too. If you happen to have one eye come out great and one eye come out like, you can put a patch over it. Yeah, just make a little wooden patch, slap it over it. You got in a gunfight, lost an eyeball. Yeah. You can do that. Oh, shop inspector's barking at the birds. Okay, the first cut I make is up underneath the eyebrow. That is going to be your top eyelid, okay? And I make that on about a 30 to 40 degree angle. You know, you don't have to be super accurate on that. Oh, the shop inspector's going nuts. Okay, then the second cut we're going to make is for the eyeball itself, up underneath that eyelid. Make sure you stay to the inside of your line, okay? You got your tool angled at that same, you want to match the angle of your eyelid. So whatever you cut your eyelid at on top, make sure you cut your eyeball at the same angle. If you go too steep, you might cut right through the top of your eyelid. Words of experience, had this happen, guys, a couple times. So yeah, now we're going to cut in the bottom part of the eye. And so I'm holding the piece at an angle, and I'm holding my hand piece at an angle. So we're still at about that 30 degree angle, between 30 and 40 degrees. It don't got to be perfect, but make sure you stay on that same angle, okay? You don't want to go flip-flopping your angles too much, because otherwise you'll end up cutting through your eyelid, and that's no fun. Okay, now you're going to say, well, Rob, that eye is way smaller than the other eye. The other eye started out the same way, guys. Okay, you're cutting on that angle, right? Well, you're going to leave a pretty big gap between the eyelid and the eyeball. So you're going to end up having to cut down the eyelid. Number one, you got to shape it kind of round. You want your eyelid kind of round to match your eye. So you're going to have to cut that eyelid back, which exposes more of the eye. That's what I'm saying. Keep your tool, your handpiece, at the same angle if you can. If you're at 30 degrees, leave it at 30 degrees. If you're at 50 degrees, leave it at 50 degrees. Number one, it'll save you from cutting through your eyelid if you change your angle to a different sharpness. And number two, when you go to cut it back, if you change your angle as you get further down the eye, you might not have any eyelid. You'll have to carve it all away. Okay, so what I'm doing there is the first thing I do is I carve the corners of my eyes down deep. Okay, that already starts giving it that round shape. Okay, see how I'm plunging in there? And I'm cutting the corner of that eye back. And then we're going to start rounding the eye. So, see, it don't take very long to get an eye cut in. But believe me, guys, I am terrible at eyeballs. Okay? And it has taken me forever to get this far with an eye. So don't feel bad if you don't get it on the first go. Because my Yemeni, I'll tell you, for me, eyes is probably the hardest thing to make. You know what they say? You can see the soul through the eyes, or the window to the soul. Well, not my eyes. Well, maybe my eyes that I see with, but my eyes that I carve, it has taken me at least a year to get this good, which is still crappy at carving eyes. Some guys, man, they can catch on to eyes like that. Me, I've tried probably 1,000 different techniques for cutting eyes. I watch eye videos and guys cutting eyes, and I practice eyes, and the best eyes I've done so far were the eyes on that cane. The wood spirit down at the bottom of that cane were the best eyes I've ever carved. And then you're like, well, if you did it once, why can't you do it twice? Well, I'm trying. Yeah, so you'll actually see me cutting that eyelid, especially the bottom and the top down, to get it closer to the eye. Otherwise, when you look at it, you got a big gap between the eye and the eyelid. So see what I'm doing right there? I'm cutting that eyelid back and down to get down to where my eye is. So that's what I'm always saying. With your eye, the eyeball itself, you want to start a little on the small side, because as you work your eyelids down, your eyeball will get bigger. Okay? That's what I'm driving at. Because you seen how little that eye was when we started out. Well, the other one started the same way, and I was kind of worried. I'm like, man, these eyes are going to be too little for this guy's face. But as I started working it down, and see, I'm cutting that bottom eyelid, I'm shaping it. Number one, once you cut the corners of your eyes down, you're going to be like, well, now my eyelids are too wide. But there's plenty of room there, guys, to cut them eyelids back up to the eye. Now, you see how they're getting to be the same size? See? I told you. Results. It's magic. You remember that video Jordy was showing you with the mustache? You know, you keep feathering the mustache back, and it seems like the mustache is getting longer and longer, then you got to cut the mustache back. That's the best example for these eyes. Okay? When you first cut the eye in, it's going to look, you're going to be like, oh, that's way too small. But as you work that eyelid in, okay, and get it shaped, the eye tends to get bigger. So you're better off with the eye itself starting out a little bit small, because you're going to work that back. You're going to want to close up that gap between the eye and the eyelid, okay? And you're also going to want to shape that eyelid so that it's not flat. You're going to want to round it, like match the roundness of the eye is the best way I can put it, guys. And then that way there, see, everything's shrinking down. The outside's shrinking down, but the eyeball's getting bigger. Isn't that like magic? So, yeah. You know, eyes are not easy, my friends. Ask Jordy. He'll tell you. The more realistic you want to make your eye, the harder and harder it's going to be. That's why a lot of carvers tend to stick with the simple eyes or the cartoony eyes. Yeah, so don't be afraid to take a piece of wood and just carve, a nice round piece of wood, and go down it and carve yourself some noses with eye beds. Okay? I see a lot of guys, they show how to do eyes on the corner. I don't like that, because you're only showing me how to do the eye. All right? Now, what happens when you come up against the nose? So what I do is I'll take a piece of basswood or something, and go ahead and carve a bunch of noses with the eyes, the places for the eyes, and then go back and try carving eyes different ways, and that way there, you'll get better at them. That's like me being a chicken like I am. I carved the left eye off camera, right? Because I'm like, well, if I mess this eye up, I'm just going to put a patch over it. He's going to be a one-eyed cowboy. And then I'll put a scar on his cheek like he was in a gunfight or something. There's all different ways. If you mess up one eye, you don't got to have that eye there. You don't even got to have it. Just put a patch over it. Take a little piece of wood and carve it like a piece of material, and just put a patch right over his eyeball. Then you can turn him from a cowboy into a pirate, or a one-eyed cowboy, or who knows. There's always ways to fix your pieces, guys. Unless you carve through it, like the first cowboy I started the other day, I carved right through it, or put a hole right through him. That's why in the last video I just posted, I was so stringent about. Remember, piece of wood is only 1 inch thick, okay? But even though this is only a 1 inch thick piece of wood, look at the detail we're getting into them. Not bad, right, for a 1 inch thick piece of wood. But the trick is, it was on a corner. It's always easier to carve faces on a corner, right? Right now, I'm working the corner of the eye up by the nose. I'm trimming all that in deeper so that it rounds like the eyeball does, like your eyeball does. Your eyelids aren't flat. Don't be afraid to as you're carving, have a mirror there. Look at your own face. Look at your own eyes. I've got a book on faces, okay, that I look at all the time when I'm carving. I'm going to get brave here and carve a woman's face one of these days. And I got a book that shows how to carve women's faces. So yeah, don't be afraid to sit down with a piece of wood, and every piece can't be a masterpiece, right? So just carve it in. And you can see I'm working that, I'm getting that corner. I carved the corner of the eye back more, and now I'm bringing the eyelid, I'm carving it in towards the eye, so that it closes up that gap between the eye and the eyelid. I know I'm repeating myself, but a teacher of mine said, for you to learn how to do something, you got to hear it 3 times. So I figure if you hear it 3,000 times, maybe it's stick, right? Shut up, Rob. Anyway, yeah, so that's all we're doing here, is we're just working the eyelids. And it's really hard to explain, and it's even harder to show in a video how to do this. So my suggestion is get yourself an old piece of palette board or something that you don't care about, and carve a nose and the relief for the eyes in it. And then go ahead and just start carving eyes. For me, this is the easiest way to carve an eye. And I learned the eye bed thing, believe it or not, to make the eye bed before you make the eye. Jordy was making simple eyeballs. Okay, all he did was just come in next to the nose and just cut a swoop in there, right? And then he would take his tool and drill a pupil in it, and that was a simple eyeball. I mean, look at Grumpy Jesse. Okay, Grumpy Jesse has a pretty simple eyeball going. But then Jordy has taken it further, and I have taken it further. So I kind of use that swoopy eyeball thing, but I'm using it for an eyeball bed, okay? And the eyeball bed is that like a bag under the, okay, there, we're going to our little diamond to sand everything off. Okay, so the flame burr, diamond flame burr. Okay, so the eyeball bed thing I came up with after watching him create a simple eye. Just a little swoopy, like that bag thing in the beginning of the video. And on that walking cane that I made, that's how I did his eye. So you see, I took a little bit of what I learned from Jordy and applied it. I'm like, well, if I create the eye bed first, then because I was always trying to carve the eyeball first, and it was atrocious. My eyelids looked terrible. So I said, I'm just going to carve in a spot for the eye first, like that bag, okay? And then I'm going to come back and draw my eye in, okay? And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut the eyelids in first, then cut the eye in. And that's what I did on that little guy on the cane, the little wood spirit guy on the cane. And that was the beginning of me carving this style eye. Now, you might not like this style eye. You might want to go with a different style eye. Everybody's got their own carving style. And, yeah, you can open that eye up right down to, you could have that eyelid only 1/8 of an inch thick if you want it. I like giving the guy, a gunfighter, cowboy guy, kind of that squinty look. Like, go ahead, punk. Make my day. Draw. But yeah, you can make your eye beds bigger. You can give them great big cartoony eyes. There's, like I said, there's 1,000 different ways of doing eyes. Doug Linker does an awesome cartoon type eye. Go over and check his eyes out. Okay, guys, so that's going to be it for today. That's today's video, and we will catch you guys on the next one. So, be awesome. Carve something awesome, guys. Carve every day if you can, especially during this quarantine deal we got going. Share, subscribe, and like. Remember, we got the 500th giveaway coming up on May 7th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time and 5 o'clock Pacific Time. So that's it, guys. Share, subscribe, like, be awesome, carve something awesome, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.